Screencast, Class in America by Anna Roy. Throughout the course of this unit, we have seen the clear-cut distinction of classes in the 18th and 19th century until the Gilded Age, where everything was glittering on the surface but corrupt underneath. In the 19th century, social relations guided and regulated the market. It was ruthless on the laborer, crushing them at the bottom of the class spectrum. Simultaneously, the economy of the United States developed with the help of a national transport system and communication network. The United States was becoming prosperous. In McGill's explanation of the term market, we learned that by the end of the 19th century, the Supreme Court used commerce clauses to overturn local and state laws, creating a national market. Alas, in October 1929, an unprecedented wave of sell orders shook the New York Stock Exchange, and the economy crashed. The boundless prosperity of the 1920s had come to an end. The Great Depression had a global impact. By 1932, an estimated 30 million people were unemployed around the world. By 1939, 17% of Americans remained jobless. The Great Depression fundamentally transformed the public attitudes, as we will discover through the primary source extracts of the radio series called Hard Times, of people living during the Great Depression. Studs Terkel was a Chicago reporter who recorded these ordinary Americans, detailing their everyday experiences at the time. The first interviewed woman speaks of the Great Depression as a time of struggle to stay warm and find food. Let's listen to her account.
Oh, this suggests struggle. This suggests struggle for survival. Survival just to be warm, to have bread and carob syrup was a treat.
There were bread lines, soup lines, and apple sellers. It was a time of trouble, of finding work, and anyone could lose their job at any time. Her father had lost his job and was luckily employed by the WPA, which is the Works Projects Administration, a work program for the unemployed that was created in 1935 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. They constructed roads, public buildings, bridges, parks, and airports for a weekly salary. Another interviewee spoke about the humiliation of people that lost their jobs and had to go on relief. 4/5 of the population received a weekly $2.5 by the Red Cross. There was shame and guilt of not being able to provide for their loved one. People were thankful, though, to have the federal support, but it greatly impacted their self-esteem. The parents of another interviewee owned a restaurant, and they were struggling.
I knew the Depression had really hit with full impact. The electric lights went off. Parents could no longer pay the $1 electric bill, which it amounted to maybe for a month or 2 months, $1.80 at the most. And kerosene lamps went up in the home and in the business. Over each individual table in the restaurant, there was a kerosene lamp.
He states that at the time, people could manage in all situations. They were feeding people independently of their race and social status. A hamburger was just a nickel, and a full-course meal, 25 cents. The higher class was also having a hard time, and tuned down on extravagances. For example, they did not have debutante parties, which could have been seen as outrageous. As the last interviewed woman said, everyone became poor, regardless of their class. Everyone was losing, and statuses were no longer felt.
Make it so felt then, because your neighbor, everybody knew was like you.
That's right. Your neighbor was losing his house, somebody else was having their furniture taken away, and everybody was in the same boat.
People survived the Great Depression by helping each other and by being generous with one another, independently of class. Sadly, the cure for the Great Depression was the Second World War. The young people that had grown up in the Great Depression disappeared at war. It was a quiet time. The war would once again boost the economy, and classes would later be redefined in the country. These are the references that I used for this screencast. Thank you for listening.